Hello everyone, I'm Denise Love. Today I want to talk about some art books that I've got on my bookshelf that are newer to my collection that I thought maybe some of you would like to see the inside, and just do a little flip through and take a look at each of these that I've kind of recently collected. The first book here, and these are about color and painting and mark making. Some are abstract, some are just painting and improving your skills. And even though I paint like abstract and stuff, I'm always wanting to kind of learn new stuff and see the techniques that different people use and have figured out what works for them. And I like looking at color in any form, which is why I do those color palette challenges, because I find color to be fascinating. And you know, I have a degree in interior design, which is, it's mostly drafting and blueprints and moving walls and kitchen bath design and things like that. It's not really about the decorating part of it, but the decorating part comes into it too. And so I did have several color courses years ago in college, talking about how different colors make you feel in your environment and how the different colors, you know, work together in the color wheel, and how we have different color palettes that we can pull together, like complementary, split complementary, triad, monochromatic, analogous, and analogous complementary. So you have like all these different colorways to work with in color that makes color more interesting in your space and in your art. And what I like about Confident Color, An Artist's Guide to Harmony, Contrast, and Unity by Nita Leland, is that she goes through a lot of these color rules, or how color works and color schemes and how color looks when it's together in your piece. And so I really love how she goes through and explores color and kind of pulls it together, all these concepts that maybe you hear about but you don't really understand, or maybe you haven't jumped into that yourself, but it kind of shows you like analogous complementary, like what is that, and split complementary tetrad, what is that, and what colors might that be, and how do those colors really work together. Because I feel like if you're looking at dots on a color wheel, maybe you're looking at it and you're thinking, I don't know about that, because trust me, that's what I'm thinking. But then when you start mixing them together, I can't tell you how many times that I've started doing one of those color palette cards that we like to do, and I'm going, these colors are so far out my comfort zone, and I don't think this is gonna make anything. It's a hot mess, it's a disaster. And by the very end, it's like, wow, look how good that worked out. Look at this cross complementary tetrad. That right there, I'm feeling that. So I love how this book goes through what each of those color schemes actually is, talks about it, shows you examples, gives you ideas. And so it's like a color scheme playbook kind of thing. I love this. This book has been fantastic for being inspired, looking around, thinking a little deeper about color. So I'm really enjoying this book, and I have not read it cover to cover. It's one of those things where it's a lot of information, and maybe pick a section, read that section, go practice some of the things that are in that section, and then come back and read some other sections, because this is like a book that maybe you'd have at school that goes through some different design principles and colors, and talks about things in a way that, you know, maybe you should treat it as a study guide and use this as a learning guide for colors. This is an excellent book. I really like it. I'm glad I have it in my library, and it's one that I've pulled out several times just to look and be inspired by. So that's Confident Color by Nita Leland. Okay, next book I got here is How to Make Art for Joy's Sake, and this is by Christy Rice. And I like this because it talks about making art for joy. And if you've been on my YouTube channel for any length of time, you know that I'm a happy I'm a happy artist, and I like to have fun when I'm painting, and I want that joy to spread through to you, and I want you to have fun when you're painting, and I want you to let go of some of the angst and anxiety that we get when we get to our painting table and we're like, what are we going to make? And we get upset and we're trying to make some masterpiece that doesn't form. And I want to get past all of that and start creating fun and kind of intuitively. And maybe when we start, we don't know where we're going to end up, but when we end up, we've had fun. We've maybe painted several paintings and we've had so much fun that we're like, oh, that was a good paint day. So I like that this book is about finding that joy. Free-spirited watercolor. So in this book, she's going through different exercises, teaching you different techniques, and there's different projects for you to paint and explore. And some of it's mixed media where you're drawing on top of it, and some of it is just talking about basic shapes and some muscle memory so that you're kind of getting some tools and things together in your painting arsenal, I guess you could say. And some of it is about breaking the rules, some rules that maybe you've heard, and she's saying, you know, check out this rule, but let me show you what you could do instead, or how you could break that rule. Because, you know, it's really good to learn the rules. I've always heard this: learn all the rules so that you know how to break them. And I've heard that more so in photography speak, like they always say, learn, you know, the rule of thirds so that you can, you know, compose your stuff great, or, you know, never take things in the center. But there are some moments where taking something in the center is the most dynamic composition. So it's kind of like learn all the rules so that you know when you can break them. And so this book is all about having some fun, giving you some techniques, learning some of the rules so you can figure out how to break them. So this is a great little book for reference by Christy Rice, How to Make Art for Joy's Sake, Free-Spirited Watercolor. We have so much good stuff. Okay, so this book, Paint, Play, Explore, Expressive Mark Making Techniques in Mixed Media by Ray Missingman. And sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Ray Missingman. But this book is right up my alley because it's all about paint and play and exploring and abstract art, and I'm kind of attracted to this kind of art already. I have another artist here that we're going to get to that paints in that style, Flora Bowley. So I love the big, bright, bold, lots of layers, abstract kind of art. And even though this may not be the kind of art that you see me paint, it may be the kind of art that I'm heading towards, or it may be the kind of art that I collect and buy and hang in my house, or maybe I just like looking at it and being inspired and then thinking, haha, I've got an idea of something I want to do. It's just things that I like to look at. It's very much a throw all the paint at the canvas kind of look, kind of like what I do. I had somebody say on a recent thing that I did, it's that it looked like I was just all about throwing a whole bunch of paint on the canvas, and then magically it turned into art by the end. And I kind of feel like that's what we're all doing if we're out there really authentically creating and playing and experimenting. We're throwing a lots of stuff there on the canvas and then pulling it together by the end with the different marks and layers that we've added in there. And I just love all the different ideas and colors and shapes and just the layers in the different pieces in here that she is teaching you and showing you, and maybe giving you some new ideas and things that you might not have thought of. So this book is fantastic for going through and learning some new techniques for mixed media art pieces. So I do love this book quite a bit, just to flip through and look at the art. Paint, Play, Explore, Expressive Mark Making Techniques in Mixed Media by Ray Missingman. And then I kind of showed this a tiny bit. This is Fresh Paint by Flora Bowley and Lindsay Links. And this was a workshop that they used to teach, and they turned it into a book. And I really love when artists do that. I think I have another book where an artist has done that, and it was super cool. And I had taken the workshop, and then I bought the book, and I'm like, oh, what a nice companion piece. Well, this workshop I had not taken. These are in-person workshops that they did, I believe. And I've taken some of her online workshops. She does a very layered approach to her big mixed media designs also. But this book is Discover Your Unique Creative Style Through 100 Small Mixed Media Paintings. So it's all about stepping you through 100 different projects, and at the end, because style is something that everybody seems to wrestle with, and at the beginning it's something that everybody is super concerned about. You start painting and you're kind of like, when am I going to get to my style? How do I find my style? How do I know what my style is? How do I get to my style? What is my style? It's all these questions that people ask, and especially early on, you can kind of tell when people are a little earlier in their journey, because they're like, is this my style? Did I find my style? Do people want to buy this? They're all uber concerned about the style and finding it. And really what style is a long cumulation of all the decisions that you make to create your art. And it's the discoveries that you've made to discover what you don't like, so you don't do that anymore, and discover what you do like, so you do that more. And after a long period of time, and it just takes time to make some of these discoveries and making a lot of art, so you can be like, oh, I really like this, this, and this, and you start using these elements in all of your work. Then people begin to instantly recognize your pieces, because maybe they recognize those elements that you've started adding into your art over a long period of time. Maybe you start to gravitate towards color that you like, marks that you like, pattern that you like, texture that you like, compositions that you like, and all of a sudden you're creating in a style that people instantly recognize, and you've gotten to these places after a long time because of all the experimenting that you've done. It's just the decisions that you've made to get to the pieces that you're like, okay, I love this, this, and this. So this is just a wonderful book on kind of like what their philosophy is to get to painting and create the 100 different pieces to kind of get you to some of those decisions that you've made and help you find that style that most people are kind of searching for early on. So this is a super fun book. I really enjoy having that. This book is new, and it just sounded so amazing. And I follow this lady on Instagram, Painting Calm, Connect to Nature Through the Art of Watercolor by Inga Beaudevice. I'm not sure I've said that right. I'm sure I hadn't, but it's such a lovely book. And this goes through different projects and talks about different elements of composition and how you might compose things, and it shows you how to paint different items in the colors that she's used to do it. And it's just kind of a lovely little book on watercolor techniques. Just looking at it to be inspired by color and pattern and texture is fun for me. Like, look how pretty all these are. And this is not necessarily the style that I paint in, but maybe one day it will be. I love butterflies and moths and stuff. I thought that was really pretty. But it teaches you to explore different elements and then texture and layer and how to get the different colors together to do fun stuff for you. And so this book was particularly lovely, and I love it. Getting Started with Gouache, a colorful guide to the painting the world around you. So I've become kind of obsessed with gouache this year, and I use gouache about the same as I use watercolor in a watercolor type manner. Gouache is a material that's kind of in between a watercolor and like an acrylic paint. It's got more pigment generally than watercolor does. And it's matte a lot of times, and it's used a lot with illustration. And while I don't plan on, painting real objects, because that's not my thing, and a lot of people say, why isn't that your thing? And, I came out of school with design, like I was saying earlier, and so I learned how to draft on a drafting board. And in that drafting, I've spent you don't even know how many hours leaned over a drafting board drafting blueprints and rooms and things like that, and using a ruler and a T-square the whole time I was doing it, and being and using architectural circles and different patterns. This is one of mine from school, so this is very old. So being so precise throughout most of my career, because I actually did blueprints and drafting and kitchen and bath design up until I started this creative business that I have. Having to be so precise my whole career basically has kind of in my mind triggered the desire to be anti-precision. And I think that's why abstract art is so appealing to me, because nothing is precise about it. It's about color and pattern and texture and layers and just getting all the different things, lines that aren't straight for me. So it's all about the imperfection in the drawing and the painting. And so that's why I don't draw stuff, because I had to draw stuff to the exact precision extreme for most of my life, that now I'm like, I never want to draw something precise again. Anyway, I'm just flipping through this beautiful book so you can see all the lovely techniques and ideas and things that it has in there, but it takes you through the different projects to kind of help you learn how to use that gouache and how it's going to be a little heavier and more solid and more matte maybe than a watercolor. So I liked it just for the knowledge, not necessarily because I plan on painting in this very illustrative style, which gouache was kind of mostly like an illustrator's thing, and a lot of illustrators still use that over watercolor or acrylic paint. I use it kind of like it's a watercolor to get a different look to my paintings, but this is a very nice book if you want a deep dive by Emma Block. Getting Started with Gouache, a colorful guide to painting the world around you. Okay, this book, I love this book. This one's very similar to the book that I shared that had the plants, and it had the 9 squares or whatever amount of squares it had, and it had the plant and it had all the colors from the plant in it. This is kind of like that same thing, and I love it. This is Color Harmony for Artists: How to Transform Inspiration into Beautiful Watercolor Palettes and Paintings by Anna Victoria Cauldron. So this book I like mainly to look at it because it separates different things into color palettes, and say, like, for instance, here different hair colors, and here's the color palettes of hair, and different skin tones, and orange agate. So this was an actual piece of agate that she pulled the colors out of and made a painting from. And you see how this is kind of like that plant one that I shared where it had a plant and the squares of color. Look at this. This is pieces of quartz. And it's so creative because now you can basically look at anything, pull the color out, and make a color palette. And this right here is the piece of art. It's so amazing. A color bouquet, pull the different colors out of that. Now, something like this is an excellent way to experiment with color mixing because you're trying to get as many different shades and colors out of here, and maybe you have a set color of watercolors that you own. So it's all about mixing some colors to get all the colors in the piece you're inspired by. And I love this whole concept of creating a piece of art out of that. I love these. I mean, I could just look at this book all day long. Study it, enjoy the color. This is why I like those color palette cards that we do color challenges from. I just love blocks of color and texture and pattern. I think that's why I made textures for so long in photography to add to photos, because it's just, I love it. So this is one of my favorite books currently, Color Harmony for Artists by Anna Victoria Cauldron. Wasn't that beautiful? All right, so we are at the end of my current book stash haul. Hope you enjoyed getting a little look inside some of these, and if you saw any that are definitely calling your name, maybe there's some that you need or you could check out from the library, and I'll see you next time.